Okay, I'm going to walk us through now installing the OpenFlame platform on a brand new server. I'm going to start by launching my favorite terminal program and logging in to my server, which is running CentOS 5, 5.5.8 actually, and it's a completely clean install with nothing on it. And I'm logged in as the root user. You can see I'm in the root directory. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a directory called OpenFlame. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and download the installation package from firejack.net. And it's down. I'm going to then move that to the OpenFlame directory and unzip it. It's all done. Just for bookkeeping, I'm going to move that zip file back outside this directory. Just so that when I list the directory, you don't see it. So in here is everything you need to install. And we're going to run the completely automated installer by just running setup.sh and watching it go. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to install the MySQL database server and a whole bunch of Perl scripts. It's going to ask us for a MySQL root password, which I'm going to set. And it's going to initialize MySQL and start it up. It's now installing memcached. Memcached is used to just ensure that a lot of the services that run in OpenFlame are always available and they get refreshed automatically when things change. It also helps if you want to run OpenFlame in cluster mode. By default, OpenFlame uses memcached to do in-memory caching and control its context. So it's going to go ahead and download that and install it. The installer is also created an opt OpenFlame directory by default, and it'll be moving these installations of MySQL memcached and Tomcat and Maven, among other things, into that directory so that you can see those things and they don't conflict with possibly other installations that might be on the machine. Ideally, those won't be there. So as soon as this finishes, it's going to grab a bunch of Perl dependencies. These come down pretty fast. Now it's going to go grab the JDK and unzip it, and that's going to also go into that OpenFlame opt folder. And the JDK requires us to hit enter so that we can register it and unzip it and finish the installation. And now we're downloading and unpacking Maven. That's done. And now we're downloading and unpacking Tomcat. And the installation, the basic installation, is complete. At this point, all the software that you need to run OpenFlame is on the server. It's in place. And now we're going to, and OpenFlame has been registered as a service. And so we're going to go ahead and run OpenFlame for the first time by saying OpenFlame start. And the first time that OpenFlame starts, it is going to initialize its database, initialize its configuration, and load a whole bunch of metadata in so that the platform runs properly. That only happens the first time you start it. So if we cd into /opt/openflame base logs, we can actually come into Catalina out. I'm going to hit enter and then shift F, and you can see that OpenFlame is now deploying. So most of this initialization actually runs from inside the web container, the web application inside of Tomcat. First it has to deploy everything, and now it's creating tables. So the OpenFlame database is getting created, and now it is loading the OpenFlame package XML data into the OpenFlame metadata database so that the baseline documentation, all of the OpenFlame service actions are all in place, and the security is in place, and it's all everything you'll see in the OpenFlame console once it runs will be in the database. So that's what's happening now. This takes a few minutes. Once it's done, what will happen is some of the other dependencies for OpenFlame running at runtime will get loaded. So as you can see, OpenFlame is using Hibernate quite extensively. It loads the XML from the package and actually loads those into objects and uses Hibernate to persist the objects. So at this point, we've actually populated the database, and we're going to start to resolve Maven dependencies that any project that gets built with OpenFlame is going to require. So when OpenFlame does code generation, it needs to have these Maven dependencies in place. You might see this error from time to time, or what looks like an error that says stack traces are on. That's totally normal. It just tells you that if an error happens, you will see the stack trace, but you can ignore that. This does take a few minutes. So most of these libraries are actually getting unpacked from the distribution that comes with OpenFlame. They're not actually reaching out to a repository, but they're just getting them all in place so that when OpenFlame does build projects for you, all of the dependencies that it needs to do that are already in place, and you don't have to deal with problems later on. So you'll see references to the opt OpenFlame M2 directory. That's the Maven home directory specific for OpenFlame. So OpenFlame does integrate quite a bit for you. As a result, this initial setup process does take some time. But once these Maven dependencies are all resolved, Tomcat will tell you that the server started up properly, and we should just be able to access the console immediately and see OpenFlame run. And that's it. So we can now come out of this, and we should be able to bring up a Firefox window and just navigate to OpenFlame on this server. And there we have it. OpenFlame is now running. You can log in with the default admin username and password, which is admin and 6 ones. And we're in. Welcome to OpenFlame version 1.3.